You're listening to Everything's Canceled podcast with your hosts,
Herman
and Lorena. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening to right now and follow us on Instagram at Everything's Canceled podcast. In each episode, we discuss topics in detail that could be triggering for some listeners, so please listen with care.
All content provided in this podcast is for general information and entertainment purposes only. Any copyrighted content reproduced in this podcast is done so in accordance with Section 107 of the Copyright Act, allowing fair use and is not an infringement of copyright. Any information discussed referring to specific incidents are allegations only, unless proven otherwise in a court of law. Due to the changing nature of laws, rules, and regulations, the hosts will make no representations to the accuracy or completeness of any information in this podcast and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, nor the availability of this information, for any losses, injuries, or damage from the display or use of this information.
Welcome to Everything's Canceled. Happy New Year.
Welcome to Everything's Canceled podcast.
2025.
New season. Are we calling it a new season?
It is a new season because it's a new year.
It's a new season
with
in
new
so many ways.
Commitments. It's a new season, yeah.
It is a new season of our podcast as well. Let's call it that.
And in our life. Let's just say, I know we always come back with excuses, but they are legit. We have been moving.
So many excuses. We have all the excuses.
We made a huge move, though. We made a huge move.
We have a new place to record our podcast.
Yes.
We move homes and podcast studios.
We had to move homes, and not only did we have to pack up the old house, which we had to pack up our equipment, and then we had to move it, but then we had to unpack it as Christmas was happening. It's been quite a year over here for Herman and Lorena, or the end of the year. And now it's a new year.
Yeah, and let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, too. Let's just say who's...
Okay, well, not what you would think. I bet you came back for Diddy, but we are talking about Garth Brooks.
Yeah, who's canceled this week, Lorena?
Garth Brooks, except he's not canceled, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And this is a undeveloped story. It's not fully developed. We are coming in with some thoughts and maybe even some predictions before we actually get a final court case or resolution to this. This is somewhat of a new breaking story.
So why Garth?
Well, because, you pay more attention to the cancellations in the news of people that you know and people that you like. And if you listened to this podcast at all, probably you know that my lane is country music and I pay, more attention to that. And it's obviously something that means more to me. I get accused all the time on here that I don't know anything about pop culture. That's not true. But it is very true that I knew nothing about hip-hop culture. It's not my lane of knowledge. But Garth Brooks, I would probably say the same thing about Garth Brooks that a lot of people would say. Huge influence in my life. Listen to a lot of it with my family working on country radio.
People love Garth Brooks.
People love Garth Brooks. And he was,
right?
The height of his career was, in prime years of me being introduced to music. So it's not like it was before my time. Garth Brooks is my time. And my parents were huge fans. I mean, every couple in the 90s who listened to country music, their song was probably one of Garth Brooks' songs. People have been influenced by Garth Brooks, and Garth Brooks is influenced by big names. He was influenced by Waylon Jennings, George Strait. He replaced George Strait, right? You had George Strait, and then you had Garth Brooks. So Garth Brooks hit the news this time for some lawsuits from his makeup and hair artist with some sexual assault allegations. It's actually not his first lawsuit, so that's what I found out.
Okay, did not know that either.
Yeah, did not know that. And while it's not for the same thing, I do think it could potentially be relevant. So before we jump into anything, I'm going to talk about Garth Brooks' history, his marriage, his politics, things like that. But before we go there, tell me your relationship to Garth Brooks. Do you have a favorite song? Do you know any?
Not really. You know what I mean? I think we were talking about this, and I didn't listen to country music in the 90s. In the 90s, I was in high school, and country music would have been uncool to me. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to listen to country music then. And I only got into country music that would be on the radio, maybe about 10 years ago or so, and then through that kind of got into Garth Brooks. But so I really got into pop country or radio country or any of that type of stuff in the last 10 years, which would be in the streaming era, which would mean it's pretty difficult to access Garth Brooks music other than on the radio.
Right.
So,
well, and speaking of access to Garth Brooks,
other than hearing people drunkenly yell, "I've got friends in low places," and many, many, many occasions, I can't really say that I know many Garth Brooks songs, or like, I mean, I know he's big, I know he's huge.
Right. Well, what I was saying about access to Garth Brooks music, he has been, how do you word that, against streaming music? How would you word that? He doesn't.
He doesn't have any of his music on streaming, for one.
Yeah, so he's all about like copyright laws and protecting artists. That's what I'm saying. And so you can't get his music on streaming services until like just a couple of months ago, and I think some of them are now like on Spotify. But you can't find him on YouTube. You can only find covers. For being such a huge artist, you have to have his CDs, or you have to pay on iTunes for his music. You cannot really get it for free. And so actually the only CDs I own are Garth Brooks CDs because I love to listen to Garth Brooks. I'll get into a Garth Brooks mood, and I had to have CDs.
We're always picking them up at yard sales.
Yep, that's the one. I always look for Garth Brooks CDs at yard sales when people are selling their CDs.
I mean, and this is good for artists in the sense that, like, most artists don't get paid very much for their music on streaming, right? And so that's why Garth Brooks doesn't want to do that.
And if anyone was going to take a stand against that, it would have to be an artist big enough to know that he was safe to take that stand. People will go out of their way to pay for Garth Brooks.
And he's really stuck to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's loosened up just a little bit in the last few months, but that's it. So...
yeah, I guess I'd have to say that's certainly commendable of Garth Brooks that he has done that in service of artists' rights, right?
Right. And actually, there's a lot of commendable. Is that the word?
It is a word.
Okay, that's how you say it. I like when I said it, it didn't sound right. There's a lot of commendable things about Garth Brooks, and we're going to talk about that. And it's interesting because usually I don't really want to just talk about all the good things about a potential like suspect in a sexual allegation case, right? Like,
let's start off talking about all the things we like about
him. But I think that we're talking about how he's seen in our society, how we came to this, like what we knew about him prior to this. All of that influences how people feel, how they react, how they cancel people. It's much easier to cancel someone that you already didn't care about or didn't like. But when someone is very well loved, you know, you hear, oh my gosh, he was accused of being sexually assaulted. Well, and then 10 things come to mind that you love about him. And I think that's important when you and I are here talking about a cancellation, is let's talk about what people know about Garth, what they think about Garth, and his influence.
It's interesting to talk about how people get canceled at like different parts in their career, you know, whether they're like coming up or whether their career's kind of over. It's also interesting to talk about how like it's different when people get canceled, like people who are not really that famous or never that famous or whatever, and then people who are just absolutely beloved, like Garth Brooks, people who were incredibly famous and are like very beloved figures, like still.
And we can't put into context how powerful he is or how much money he has or how much influence he has without talking about his entire lore, right? So to start, I don't think Herman and I really have like a settled feeling on whether Garth is guilty or not yet.
I don't know. Yeah.
I guess
I don't really know. I mean, the allegations are serious.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yes. And so...
And they're not... I'll say that, like, based on, like, what the allegations are and are they possible? Like, is it credible in that sense? Yeah. I guess, like, it certainly could have happened. Like, it doesn't seem like, oh, it's like this wild scenario, kind of like going back to Diddy or something where you're like, seem like these wild scenarios. This seems... fairly
it's pretty typical
as far as things go.
Like, okay, someone you worked with. So before we dive in, let's give a little bit of info here on Garth Brooks. Okay, first off, do you know what Garth Brooks' real name is? Because I did not know this. His name is Troyal, like royal with a T. Troyal, which is a name I've never heard of.
That? Do you pronounce it Troyal?
I did. I have been. Troyal Garth Brooks. Troyal Garth Brooks. That's his name. I kind of like it. I'm like, okay, I've never seen that before. I like weird names. Born February 7th, 1962, which makes him, you know, 63 this next month.
And where was he born? Do you know where he's from?
Yes. If he wasn't born in Oklahoma, he grew up in Oklahoma. He's very well known in Oklahoma, which I'll also get into. A lot of people from Oklahoma have a lot of like great day-to-day stories of Garth. Like he attends church still in Oklahoma. Okay, interesting. If you're from Oklahoma, write us and tell me, is Troyal a common name there? Do you know how many Troyals do you know? How many Troyals are in your cell phone right now? It also seems like he's probably at least had a residence at some point or second residence in Mississippi. But yeah, he is the most famous thing out of Oklahoma, and he's an Aquarius. He came from, I like to throw that in. Always, you know how I feel about Aquarius. Make sure that we cover that important information. His birthday's coming up, So his dad worked in oil and his mom was a singer. So, that's kind of where he had a bit of a music background, is that his mom. And, she recorded things, I think, or performed in things. Okay. If he worked in oil, did he come from, a wealthy background as well? I would probably have to guess, more of middle class. Okay. But he went to college. He went to Oklahoma State University. He was star of the track and field team in the javelin throw. Okay. Yeah. And javelin thrower. Yeah. Interesting. He completed his MBA from Oklahoma State and graduated in, that's weird. It says he graduated in 2011. So maybe he went to college later. I don't know. That's weird. Okay. Anyways, he participated in the commencement ceremony, so maybe he went back. Did he give a speech maybe? Yeah, I would guess that he did college at a college age. If he was a college athlete, then yeah, probably. Yeah, that just makes sense. So he probably went back and did a ceremony for people. Very famously, he is married to Trisha Yearwood, but that is not his first wife. He married a songwriter, Sandy Mall, in 1986. And they had 3 daughters together, Taylor, August, and Allie. And then they separated in 1999. So they were together 13 years. Okay. And then the divorce final in 2001. And then he got remarried in 2005 to Trisha Yearwood. Which I'm sure was a big deal at the time. Everyone knows Trisha Yearwood. Yeah, they were totally they were very similar to Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. You had, I'm sure 2005 I would not have been giving a shit about that, but I'm sure it was a huge deal for people who right in that era, music. So everyone loved Tim McGraw and Faith Hill together. You had Garth and Trisha, and you had Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman. Oh yeah, so those are the 3 hot country star power couples. Yes. Linking them up and in the headlines and yeah, totally. All still together to this day. What were those? All 3 of those for sure. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. People don't divorce country music. Yeah, they gotta stay together. You gotta stay together. Those conservative values. Do you think they're Will and Jada together, or I mean, from the sound of some of the allegations from the victim, they make out in front of people. I think they're hot for each other. I think Trisha and Garth are still in love, probably. I found those allegations credible as well. That they make out in front of people. Yeah, totally. So anyways, I don't think Garth and Trisha have any kids together, but Garth is a grandpa now to 2 kiddos. And so he's getting to be an old man, which also plays into some of the feelings around these allegations. Yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely over the hill for somebody to be copping these kind of allegations. Well, okay, my favorite Reddit comment of all of this is, hold up, he is a makeup and hair artist. He is bald and an old man. But yes. Well, of course. Whatever she does to his hair shines up his balding head. People, that's after his makeup and hair is done. Right. So into his music history a bit, he is the only artist in music history to release 9 albums that were certified diamond, which surpasses the Beatles' former record of 6. So yeah, so we're talking this 90s country era where they're selling an incredible amount of albums and making an incredible amount of money. It's hard to put into context now, I think, with that type of monoculture, country music being huge, and the primary way that music is distributed is on CDs. So they're just selling hella CDs. We kind of covered this in Dixie Chicks too, in the same era, where it's they were so popular, they sold so many CDs, they were
incredibly popular, and it's kind of hard to put into context now with the way that people listen to music on streaming.
Well, and interestingly, since you brought up the chicks, I didn't even really consider this connection before, but similarly, Garth Brooks has been more liberal in his views in a conservative culture of country music, and that could potentially play into his success because he is appealing to the country conservative crowd with his music, but he also brought in a more like secular, progressive, with his politics, he was able to get fans all over the place.
It's really interesting how he's been able to be as successful as he has in country and really bridge that gap throughout his career, and to like maintain that position of just like beloved, like I said, in country music, while having been openly supporting a lot of things that we would consider like typical liberal values. And that really in stark contrast to like a Toby Keith or something like that. And then, of course, we already talked about the ways that affected the chicks, and Garth not canceled. Garth, right. Incredibly popular to this day.
Well, we're going to get into some almost cancellations for his politics for sure.
Okay. I'm sure that
times that he lost fans.
Controversial, yeah.
But he's also big enough that he could lose some fans to gain some fans. Totally. I think that plays into a lot of those situations. So back to his music a bit.
So he like a bit more of a unique position to that type of thing, like him being canceled by country music fans or not, taking certain stances or not.
Right. Okay, so he has released 27 albums in all, that's a shit ton. 27. That's a lot of albums. Especially since like he notoriously took a bit of a break in his music career to be more present in his kids' life when they were young. Like elementary age, he wanted to be home. So he took quite a few years off music too.
Does that count the Chris Gaines albums?
We'll get into that. So 1989 was his first big hit, Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old. Do you know that one? Okay, well, big hit.
Oh, okay. Sing it for us?
No, but I will. I do kind of want to share. I know. I almost did, and then I was like, he's got such a twangy, low men's voice. I'm not going to be able to do it, but I do want to share my favorite Garth Brooks songs, because what I look for in country music when it comes to male singers is like those romantic lyrics. He's got like very like when a man sings songs about love like that, and that is something. Garth Brooks is not the country music where he's like American flag, truck, dog, America this, his songs are about love. His songs are about storytelling. He's very much in that like original country, like I'm going to tell a story, Papa Love Mama, the truck driver who kills his cheating wife. It's a whole story.
Murder ballad.
Yeah, totally. A lot of ballads. So I'm going to just say I just got my heart broken when I found out my favorite Garth Brooks song is actually a cover. But Shameless, I had no idea that was a Billy Joel song till just now, but Shameless up there, Standing Outside the Fire, and then Wrapped Up in You, which is like, if you are a Garth Brooks fan at all and you don't know Wrapped Up in You, it's kind of like a secret extra song on one of those albums, and I highly recommend.
I think we'll definitely get canceled if we try and punch in a Garth Brooks song, so go listen to it yourself.
Oh, because he's so protective over his music?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Garth Brooks going to come
Not
sue me.
Not happening on this app?
Well, it depends. If we promote that he was innocent, maybe he'll let us keep it up.
Are we going to?
I don't know. I don't know yet.
We'll get there.
All right. So that's a little bit of his history, but I want to get into some of his politics and what he was well known for. So Garth Brooks is known for promoting tolerance in a culture that is notoriously intolerant for things. Specifically, he's very pro-gay. I believe it was his sister that's a lesbian that he was close with that was a lesbian. So from, he just grew up day one, like very protective over LGBTQ issues. And I'll share this quote. So in a 1999 interview, which is not really the most pro-gay time compared to now.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a few years before gay marriage, right?
Right. His quote, in an interview, he says, "If you're in love, you've got to follow your heart and trust that God will explain to us why we sometimes fall in love with people of the same sex." He has a very well-known song, "We Shall Be Free," which is played often when they do, when you have disasters and they fundraising songs, and they'll have artists come up and sing songs.
Oh,
for charity.
A charity song.
Mm-hmm. He has sang this one several times for that. It's very well known. And I think there's even a time where he had like several artists come and sing it.
Yeah, like a We Are the World type
Totally. Yeah. We shall be free. And it has a line in it. When we're free to love anyone that we choose, then we shall be free.
Okay, I remember that one. You played that for us.
Yeah, I played that one for you. He won a GLAAD Media Award for that song in 1993. He's done benefit concerts for gay rights, for Equality Rocks. He sang a duet with George Michael. Okay, it's his half-sister who died in 2013, and she was also a musician who released her own album, and she was part of his band.
Okay. Do you have her name?
Betsy Smittle. Betsy Smittle.
Smittle?
Smittle.
Spell that for me, please.
Like Skittle, but with an N.
Okay. It's a great name, Betsy Smittle.
Like Royal with a T.
Yeah. Who is this? I want to get all their names because this is family names.
She must have
Betsy
taken
Smittle.
her... Oh, it's a half-sister, so they must share a mom instead of a dad. Okay, so he's pro-gay, but he has also been fairly open about... I won't say he's openly liberal at all, but I will say he could be secretly leftist and openly neutral. Does that make sense?
Didn't he meet with the presidents? Does he like to go meet presidents? He met them all, right?
So he has performed for every president inauguration since Reagan, except Trump.
Okay.
He says it was a conflict of schedule, but... It's kind of a big deal.
Seems unlikely.
It was a big deal for him to perform for Barack Obama's swearing-in ceremony.
I'm sure.
But yeah, he says it's a conflict of schedule, but everyone else frames it in the articles that he turned down the opportunity. I doubt he will be offered that opportunity here this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure that Donald would not characterize it that way.
When he was interviewed about that decision about not doing Trump's, he just said that he's all about people loving people and that he will be praying for Trump. In fact, here, let me find this quote. I'll tell you with this whole presidential thing, we got one going out. Pray for him and his family, and the president going in. Pray for him and his family to guide this nation. Let's stay together, love, unity. That's what it's all about. We can't thank the Obamas enough for serving this country, and may God hold Trump's hand in the decisions that he makes in this country's name as well. So
May God hold Trump's hand.
May God have mercy on our souls. It's pretty clearly neutral, and you could read it either way, you know. Anyways.
I think that denying playing is probably more of a statement, but...
Him and Trisha Yearwood have worked really closely with Habitat for Humanity. He's very vocal about wanting to help single moms, poor families, homeless, gay rights. He's always doing something. He was building a lot of houses. And
good for Garth.
Yeah. Lots of...
Hey, good for the world. Thank you, Garth. Thank you, Garth.
He was pretty close with the Carters, and he said, you know, the Carters, they are what we should all shoot for to be as human beings. He says, please forget Republican or Democrat. What they are standing for is being human beings. If we are going to go anywhere as a human race, this is the path we want to follow. So anything keeping any light on that path and those two people's dreams, then count us in. That was about the Carters. He also went on to say, you've got to understand that when you get to heaven, nobody cares about Republican or Democrat in heaven at all. Welcome to heaven. That's it, he said. You don't care who's on the other end of that board that's helping you carry it. You don't care about the color of their skin, their sexual preference, their religious preference. It doesn't matter. You're all here to build a house for someone that needs it. Usually a young lady and her babies or a family that needs it. So this is way, way, way beyond any political agenda at all. When kind of asked about, you know, Republican, Democrat, he says, we're probably divided 50-50 like everyone else. But because it's country music and they think it's 90-10, it's not. It's just voices, he said. That's why everyone pushed so hard for their vote. The only way you're going to break stereotypes is to let your voice be heard within the stereotype. I was raised where I speak for myself. That's all I can do. My message forever is tolerance. And don't vote party, vote person. He said, is it in our nature to divide? Are you Democrat or Republican? Are you black or white? Are you Ford or Chevy? I think it's our nature to build a wall between us. We set up cliques. We should be focusing on inclusion. We immediately set up walls to not like people instead of finding reasons to bring them in like family. I'll probably bring up some more quotes over time about his politics, but it's pretty clear he's pretty neutral, but obviously he's like, it's more about what he's not saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think he's done pretty well at just trying to prioritize love and tolerance, at least performatively, if anything.
Yeah, rhetorically, like, I love everything that he has to say there.
Right. Another big one that hit the news, though, was like the Bud Light thing, which, what was it? Bud Light did a commercial that, what did they do in the commercial? Were gay people drinking it? Was it rainbow? I don't even remember anymore.
God, I'm trying to remember. They had like a rainbow can, maybe?
Something.
What did start that? I can't even remember now.
But anyways, Kid Rock
It was something super mild like that, though.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they even had, like...
Was it a Pride can?
I think they might even have like a gay person. God, I can't remember now. I don't know.
I don't remember. But Kid Rock went and shot up a bunch of Bud Light.
Yes. That's what we all remember, of course.
And Garth then made a statement after Kid Rock did that, and he boldly said that he plans to serve Bud Light in every bar of all of his concerts, and he will welcome anyone in his concerts who want to have a good time there. He said, I think diversity is the answer to the problems that are here and the answer to the problems that are coming. So I love diversity, all inclusive, so all are welcome. I understand that might not be other people's opinions, and that's okay, man.
It's okay, man.
And then there was like this weird thing that happened too, where it was like after he said that he would keep Bud Light in the bar, there was like all these criticisms that came out. He lost all these fans. He kind of got like mildly canceled for like a second because you can't cancel Garth Brooks, which I think will be the whole point to this. The Texas Governor Abbott.
Oh, yeah.
He had responded to what he thought was a news story about Garth Brooks getting booed off the stage for his stance about Bud Light, which was a satire news article. It wasn't real, but the governor thought it was real. So he had like shared on his Twitter. He said, there you go, go woke.
Right, yeah.
He says, there you go woke, go broke, Garth. And then Garth responded to that and said, he called his conservative fans assholes and said, good job, Texas. Because he's just like, this is all ridiculous. So that was some online drama where, you know, he took a stand against the Texas governor and called him an asshole.
Yeah, wrapped up in the...
Basically, it's just like all this drama, fake articles, the governor, all because you don't like gay people. We're going to shoot up rainbow cans, essentially. It's just
beer can politics.
Yeah, and it's like...
it was just a year or two ago there.
Well, and if his sister was part of his band the entire time and she's a lesbian, it's like, you don't get to come to my concert and enjoy my music by my sister who's a lesbian and then tell me that I'm canceled for serving gay beer. You know? So, anyways, that's a little bit about his politics. Another random fact about Garth Brooks I didn't know. Did you know he played baseball?
Okay.
Yeah. In 1998, he...
he played like for a minor league team, right?
He had a short career in baseball where he signed with the San Diego Padres for spring training in 98 and 99. And basically, he wasn't good enough to be put on the regular scene roster, but he was offered a non-roster spot.
Not good enough for the Padres.
He was offered a non-roster spot, but he declined it. And then he signed with the New York Mets the following season. He didn't do so great in spring training with them, and I don't think he was even offered another position. And then in 2004, so a few years later, he returned to baseball with the Kansas City Royals. He got his first and only hit off Mike Myers during his spring training game with the Royals there. So his secret other, if I wasn't a singer, I'd be a baseball player, I guess.
Okay.
All right,
so. What did he play?
Wikipedia did not tell me that.
Yeah. Okay. Not important.
I guess. He sucked, so. I mean, obviously better than me, dude.
Yeah, good enough, kind of.
He had a little bit of a baseball career. That's kind of cool.
Do you think they just let him play because he was Garth Brooks, or do you think he was actually good enough to be on like the minor league roster?
I don't know. Oh, also in 2019, around the time of these allegations coming out, he also made a return to spring training for the Pittsburgh Pirates. but mostly he has a charity. He has a baseball charity, Touch 'Em All Foundation. Okay. He has a few baseball charities.
Unfortunately named.
Yeah. He's touching hearts.
Yes.
But
I'm sure that is the intention.
Yeah, a little weird of a name there. Okay, and then we're going to get to the last weird, bizarre Garth Brooks thing that I didn't know about. Who the fuck is Chris Gaines? I had no idea. If you're listening to this and you already knew about it, whatever. But I had no idea that Garth Brooks had this whole like alter ego and he put out an album under this other name. I mean, you never heard anything about it, right?
No, I can't believe it either because, I mean, I find it very entertaining.
And it's very
such
strange.
An entertaining idea. He was so committed to it, which I love.
Yeah. He like, still kind of is.
Very, yeah, totally. Like, very, like, Andy Kaufman-esque, full-on creating this character and playing it out. The picture's fantastic. His facial hair is so good.
So I didn't take any notes here, so I'm just going to go off memory of my deep dive. I listened to the album. So if you don't know anything about it, the king of country here actually had a dream of being a rock musician. And because he had made it so big in country, he just didn't really feel like there was ever going to be like a chance for him to make a rock album. Like he would be kind of rejected. The country people would say, you know, you're kind of selling out, and the rock people would say, you have no business being here kind of thing. So he just felt like he was so deep into country music, he couldn't do like an experimental album. So he decided that he would make this alter ego, Chris Gaines. His picture with like, he kind of has like emo hair. It's very strange. And this is in 99, so he's in his 30s or so. Or more. He's like 40. He's like 40 doing this. He gets this like emo hair with this like
very much an
side,
adult man.
Yeah, this like side swipe, and he's kind of makes this music that reminds me a little bit of oh god, is it Train that I'm thinking of? Yeah, reminded me of like the Train cover.
Yeah, it's like emotional pop rock.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only that, but he had like a whole
film.
There's a whole film that's like the story of this guy who goes through like a series of unfortunate events. Like this person dies in a car accident, and then he's almost dies, and maybe there's some cancer. I don't even know. There's a whole story that he created, and he essentially was going to be like the soundtrack for this movie, and they wanted to release the album before the movie so that people had this emotional tie to this Chris Gaines, like
to like introduce Chris Gaines to the public, and his music,
and then you'll care about the movie more. The movie, there you can read about it. There's a bunch of drama of kind of why it didn't produce. Some of that is that like his record company
it was never made or never
it was never made, and it kept getting promised. But anyways, the album was actually a hit. People love it, and weirdly enough, a lot of people on the internet say it's his best album. Yeah,
okay. I didn't
people
know that
love
there
it.
was much love for the music.
And weirdly enough, you go to like the YouTube comments, and there's people who are like, I came back because this album's so nostalgic for me, and I had no idea after all these years it was Garth Brooks. Like, I've been telling everyone my favorite singer is Chris Gaines.
You could definitely listen to the album and see the photo and have no idea that it was Garth Brooks. That's for sure.
I mean, even while I was trying to, like, piece together what this was.
And, like, musically, you'd have no idea as well.
Yeah, I, like, halfway through my research, did it click in my head, oh, this is Garth Brooks. This isn't a joke, or I don't know, and that it's a real album that's out there.
Yeah, like I said, like emotional pop rock.
So when all the allegations came out, everyone was like, it's not Garth Brooks, it's Chris Gaines. Now I get the joke. Okay. So, all right.
It is a very funny idea, and his commitment to it is also very funny, I think.
Yeah. So before we get into the actual allegations, one more part of his history. It's not his first lawsuit, so I kind of want to go into it because it was many years ago. In 2013, he had another lawsuit against him. A woman, let's see, her last name is Sanderson. Do we have a first name here? I don't know if I copied it down.
Sanderson. Winnie the Pooh. Sanders, right?
Last name Sanderson. I did not copy down in my notes her first names. She claims in court documents that she went to work for Red Strokes, which is the music company that was going to help Garth Brooks develop film and TV projects for him, hence Chris Gaines' time. And she states in her lawsuit that...
This lawsuit was in 2013 is when the lawsuit was filed?
Yes.
Okay.
So essentially they were working on all these projects, and he had promised her that he would pay half of the profits from production deals that went through to her. She was supposed to get half, as well as a $250,000 bonus for loyalty and years of service.
Okay, so it was for like unpaid royalties.
Yes, she said that she never received a dime of her 50% share of the producer fee, and she stopped receiving proper compensation from Red Strokes in 2011. So
he's been accused of like improper business practices in the past.
And take note, paying her fairly, because that comes to play in the allegations that we're going to talk about today. So
how was this settled?
Well, so she alleged fraud, breach of oral agreement, breach of the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, and violation of the California Labor Code that requires an employer to make good on all due wages and bonuses. And she sought out $425,000 plus other damages. Of course, he denied literally all of the claims. The jury in the case ultimately rejected her claims at the trial, finding in favor of Garth Brooks, and awarded him $226,000 in 2014.
Oh, interesting. So,
and later she claimed that Garth Brooks has an everyman appeal, and that's a ruse, and he's actually a paranoid, angry, deceitful, and vindictive man who will turn against those closest to him on a dime.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah, so those are
obviously not how the jury felt, but
yeah, and we'll see how they feel on, next allegations. And I'm going to go, play by play through that. But as it stands, when all of this has come out, pretty much unanimously on the internet, people are in favor of Garth and believe that these current allegations of sexual assault by his makeup artist are completely made up and it's extortion for money. And it all began as well with he denied paying for her to have medical insurance and didn't want her to have a salary. And so she said, fine, then I'm going to tell everyone what you did.
Okay.
So it begins with that. She had worked for him for 20 years and she relied on the income and was too afraid to come forward. But as she began to ask for more security in her job with health insurance and a salary, and he wasn't giving that to her, according to her perspective, it wasn't worth keeping his secrets against her anymore. It wasn't worth going through what she was going through with him if she also needs more money than she's making.
Interesting.
Okay, so let's start diving deep into kind of the background of their relationship and who she is and the exact allegations. For the record, I read all 27 pages of the suit from Jane Roe, as we know her. And it states on there that any email or text message or content of telephone conversations that is spoken about in the suit, which is what I will be speaking about here, are direct quotes from text documents and audio recordings that she has. So she has quite a bit of actual evidence in regards to how they've spoken about these incidences.
Okay.
Which is interesting because I don't really know if Garth has just said nothing has happened or just that it was not consensual, but that's where we're going to start hearing more from him. He just talks about how this is a money shakedown.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a clear statement of, I have never touched this woman, she's made this all up, or, oh, we slept together, but it was consensual.
He didn't say just, I thought I was under the impression he said, like, everything I've ever done is consensual. He said that he's been accused of horrible acts that he's never done, right? Something like that.
Right. So did he not rape her, or did he not touch her? Did he not have any sort of relationship with her? Because publicly, he's not going to be like, oh, we slept together, so I cheated on my wife, or I have an open relationship with my wife. That would also be detrimental to his reputation, and his suit is for defamation. Jane Roe was the hair and makeup artist for Trisha Yearwood starting in 1999, so for a long time, and didn't start working with Garth Brooks until around 2017. In 2019, she began facing financial troubles. She came forward to Garth and Trisha about it, and to help her, Garth gave her more consistent work so that she could make more money.
Okay.
And I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means that he had many makeup and hair artists and now he only kept her, or however that worked out, he gave her more work. She claims that he immediately started taking advantage of her vulnerable position of relying on him for income. It's not really stated what her financial state was, it seemed to be desperate. My gut tells me that maybe there was something medical going on in her family, because it seemed like there was this sudden financial burden that came that she had to come forward and talk about. And,
okay,
it was
because she'd been working, essentially doing the same work for at least, almost 20 years prior, right? So she suddenly came upon a financial strain, or
that was
she was
long
not working
going,
as much, or something happened there,
and when these incidences happened, like, she couldn't just quit because she so severely needed this financial security, and in fact was asking him for more, such as being put on salary and having health insurance. That was the big deal, having health insurance.
Okay.
So this makes me think, like, what if her husband had cancer? What if something happened with one of her kids? Like,
well, and this does seem to be a major issue between her and Garth, is that she was not being compensated adequately, or that she was not receiving like benefits or something like that,
yeah,
right?
She's not getting health insurance and she's not on salary. And for context, this man is worth $400 million. He's making $45 million a year. And this is one employee who travels with him everywhere he goes. And he can't give this woman, who he's potentially sleeping with or whatever's going on, some security there. They've been friends for a long time. Like, what do you mean you can't give her health insurance?
It does seem like that is a bridge too far for Garth. He will not pay her anymore, whether it was then or whether it's now. You know, he's essentially saying that she has been asking too much of him financially. She's asking for too much money, you know, whether it's like for the services, or whether it has to do with her suing him, or whether, you know, she thought that her work, she should be, you know, receiving benefits because maybe she, you know, she was working enough for them that she was essentially fully employed by them, but didn't have benefits or something like that. But that seems to be, like I said, a major sticking point between the two of them, was that at the time, essentially she wasn't being compensated adequately, and then Garth's claim is that she's been shaking him down, right?
Right. And I guess this just further proves that no one in America, not even celebrity hair and makeup artists, get adequate health insurance. Just like, you're getting screwed. No matter what job you have, no one wants to give you insurance, I guess. It's just kind of crazy, because you would think if anyone gets those benefits, it's people working with famous people, signing NDAs, like working up in that world. Like, if she doesn't get health insurance, who does?
I guess it seems imbalanced because Garth is worth so much, right? And is potentially making so much money. But then if this woman is working for him, and also for Trisha, enough that would essentially like equate to full-time employment, or maybe even more if you're traveling with them or whatever. But then that work is not something that, according to their employer, is, you know, that she's gonna receive medical benefits for. So where does that put her exactly?
Right. And I also want to share this question to ask yourself, like as a listener, or you next to me, is, you know, everyone online is just like, he didn't do this. He wouldn't rape her. He wouldn't exploit her for money. There must be more to the story. But then is very quick to say with their full chest, she is exploiting him for money. And it's like, well, if all humans are capable of doing either, like, why is it more unbelievable that he would exploit her for sex on the basis of money than her exploit him for money on the basis of sex? And what is exploitation in that way? Like, if someone rapes you, is it a money shakedown to be paid adequately for the work that you did and then be compensated for the harm that he caused against you? Because I've said it to you many times whenever we record these things, like, man, if my rapist had been a millionaire, I probably would have tried to get money. Like, the one thing that I could have gotten out of it, of all, you know, the lifetime of pain and burden that I've had, it would have been nice to get some money out of it. What else is there, you know?
I guess in situations like this, it potentially goes both ways. It's like, who's exploiting who?
Yeah. I think I know what side I'm leaning on in this, but I just want it to be fair that, like, it's just as equally plausible that he's exploiting her for sex on the basis of money as she is exploiting him for money on the basis of sex, right?
Well, I mean, that seems to be the basis of a lot of these relationships, that you have an employer and an employee, and then the employer, the person essentially has financial control over this person, and then they also begin requiring sex from them as well. And where do those lines begin and end?
Yeah, because if all of this is true, he had a close relationship, or at least in close proximity to her. She had a very long, close friendship with Trisha as her hair and makeup artist from 1999 to when this started, 2019. That's 20 years. Why would the sexual relationship, whether it be consensual or not, just coincidentally begins as soon as she's working more alone with him at a time where she's extremely reliant on his money and will do anything for work?
I'm curious, has Trisha Yearwood made any sort of statement regarding this, or has
the only thing that she's done is he had made some statements, and then we were waiting to see, like, are you going to continue your tour or whatever? And she just sort of like posted a photo of them, like she's now on tour with him right now, and she posted a photo of him on tour, and it was just sort of like, we're moving on with
like a Vegas residency, right?
I think so. Okay, so let's just get into the specific incidences. The first incident happened in 2019 in his home. She showed up to do his hair and makeup as routine. He knew that she was coming over, and it seems like her routine with doing his hair and makeup, especially in his home or wherever he is, she goes and she sets up a slew of things in his bathroom, which makes sense because where else do you work as a hair and makeup artist?
Sure, that's how it works.
Yeah, you go set up everything on the bathroom counter. You've got curling irons. You got the biggest joke online is, why does he even have a hair and makeup artist? He has no hair. So I have been trying to picture what it is. Like, he's literally has no hair. It's really funny.
Makeup on his head.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that maybe she does his facial hair and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, he knew she was coming over. She goes to set up in his bathroom, and it seemed like he timed it to where he walked out of the shower naked in front of her with an erection at the exact time that she shows up. When he comes out, he doesn't go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were going to be here yet." He instead says, "I have been fantasizing about this moment," and then took her hand and forced it on his penis. He then asked for oral sex and told her that he wanted to come on her glasses, which that is an important detail because it seems to be repeated in the incidences, like this is a kink of his. She did not do what he asked at that time, but she did still stay and do her job because she needed the money. And in fact, she kind of loosely quotes him basically saying, "I know you won't leave because you need the money." And specifically, the suit from her says he correctly predicted that she wouldn't leave because she needed the work. So, correctly predicted. So obviously he made some statement in reference to, like, you won't leave, I know you need the work.
So, I mean, essentially surmising that she's in a vulnerable state financially, and that he could potentially take advantage of her sexually because of that, right?
Right. So that was early in 2019. A few months later, in May 2019, he asked her to fly on his private jet with him to the Grammys for work, which is in LA, and why I believe the suit from her is done in LA. She was surprised when she got on the plane because usually when they go and fly to these big events, the plane is filled with a lot of staff. She would expect to see everyone who's going there to help him. And she was the only one. And then when they got to the hotel, he had only gotten a suite with one room for them to share. And she asked if she could have her own room, and he said no.
Interesting. So, I mean, she goes on the trip expecting it to be a work trip where
it's the Grammys.
on these work trips, there's normally, any number of people in their entourage, other people they travel with, other professionals or whatever. But she gets there and gets on the plane, and it's more or less like a date for her and Garth that she didn't know about, right? It's like just them on a private plane. And then he's also has a hotel room for, I'm assuming with one bed, a single hotel room for just the two of them, right?
Yeah, she said there was no extra room in the suite at all. And shortly later, he comes out of the shower naked, flexing his muscles. I love how dorky this entire suit makes him sound. Anyways, he flexes his muscles. I don't know if it's like in an intimidating way or funny way, whatever, because immediately he...
a showing off way. A seriously showing off way, right?
I just can't imagine a man doing that to me. But anyways, immediately after he does whatever this muscle thing is, he starts towering over her. It's stated for context that he is over 6 foot and over 300 pounds, and she is under 5 feet and less than 100 pounds. So the physical power dynamic there is, you know. And it said he was ready to pounce, and he grabbed her hands and pulled her into the bedroom and onto the bed. He began to rape her painfully and tragically. She was helpless to move from his grip and terrified at what was happening to her. While he held her upside down, okay, note, this is where the internet starts to run wild.
A major sticking point as far as
and we're going to dissect
facts
it together.
Of this case, right?
Yeah, we'll dissect it. But here's, play by play. She was helpless to move from his grip and terrified at what was happening to her. While he held her upside down, dangling by her ankles, all the blood rushed to her head, causing her to be dizzy and sick. While Garth Brooks forcefully penetrated her, he said perverted things to her. He then repeatedly slammed his penis into her vagina, causing Miss Roe's back to keep hitting his body over and over with such force that she felt as if he was breaking her in two. He then again insisted that she wear her eyeglasses so that he could come on her. Knowing exactly what he was doing and the pain he was forcing her to endure against her will, he even said to her at one point that he knew he was hurting her, but instead of stopping, it just made him drop her from the upside down position and force her over to a small love seat where, after placing her face down, he began to engage in other acts that are too graphic to include in this legal complaint. She was terrified.
Huh.
Afterwards, he made her still do his hair and makeup quickly to be able to make it to the event on time because then they were running late. He then told her that he fucks women on every inch of his hotel room and then proceeds to name races and skin tones of women he has slept with, saying it doesn't matter what race. And she then claims in her suit that she got physical injuries from the rape, including migraines, neck and back pain, and sought out an OB for damage he had caused to her genitals. So there are medical records to prove the rape.
There's a lot to talk about there, but the first thing that I really can't get over is the comment that comes up over and over too about how he mentioned to her that he had fucked so many women that he'd fucked them all over every inch of his hotel room, despite their race, or that they were of all races, and he described their race, or I don't know.
Yeah, he's
what
like
the specifics
black women,
of those
brown
were.
women, white women, it doesn't matter, something like that.
That's such a strange thing to say,
Very
and
weird.
it also seems like, it feels like so like lib-coded Garth too, where like Garth stands for like, or
Garth
his
is
like,
so woke.
yeah, stand for so many of these like typically like liberal value things, than to like also be this like financially dominating rapist potentially, or alleged rapist, but to like then at the same time be flexing his literal muscles and then also be like flexing his like multicultural like lib credential muscle is like so odd and I guess cringy. I don't know how else to fucking describe that.
Well, and like it's no secret that celebrities probably sleep with many people. They probably have whatever arrangements in their marriages. Not everyone, but
is this a Will and Jada? Or, who fucking knows, right?
One thing that I thought of when I saw that comment about, I fucked so many women of every race all over this hotel room, I thought, well, damn, if he did get health insurance and salary for all the women in his orbit that he's sleeping with and potentially work for him, maybe he couldn't afford it, But also, I just don't buy that 62-year-old Garth Brooks is still sleeping with hundreds of women a week.
That was like part of his, or at least part of like her allegations is that he kind of like often would talk up his own sexual prowess, right?
Yeah.
Or sexual abilities.
And in fact,
was a braggart, if you will.
Not to like jump forward into his and Trisha's relationship, which I'm going to touch on, but if I had to sort of stereotype their relationship, not only do I think they're somewhat of swingers, but kind of the desperate kind. Like, they might actually struggle to find people to plug into that third spot, which is why they have these, like, acts of desperation. Like, why does anyone need to rape anyone, really, in these situations if, I mean, you're a celebrity. Like, Garth Brooks should be able to sleep with anyone. So it's like, well, he's 62.
So you think he's bullshitting about all those women?
Absolutely. I think Garth Brooks sleeps with women. I think him and his wife are probably swingers. I don't think he sleeps with hundreds and hundreds of women all over his hotel room, because why would he be tuning into this one so much? Like, maybe he had feelings for her. Maybe he had, like, a specific attraction to her.
It sounds like she was either one available to him in the sense that she was, like, vulnerable. Not so much that she made herself available or was willingly available, but like he had her in a vulnerable position. And that seems it's something that, like, you know, people who exhibit predatory behavior, like, they look for that. They create those situations.
Another question, to me, it's no question that they had some sort of sexual relationship, whether consensual or not. I believe the sexual acts or sexual tension or sexual comments absolutely happen between them. We can tell from the text messages. He acknowledges it. We have their sexting. Obviously, there's some sort of sexual relationship, consensual or not.
Yeah, the messages that, you know, she quotes in the suit, right? Some of Garth's responses that pretty clearly acknowledge some of the things that are going back and forth between them.
Right. So if we operate from the perspective that sex, to whatever degree and level of consent happened, then you have to actually start looking at Garth and being like, okay, you are publicly married and monogamous with this, like, very, you know, holy marriage, but you have some sort of dynamic. Is it swinging? Is it whatever? And I have tons of questions. Why, if this was a consensual sexual relationship, would you not have her sign an NDA, come up with some sort of, like, protection for yourself? You're a big deal. You don't want this to go down. You don't want people to know that you sleep with someone when you're married.
That does seem to be the way that a lot of this goes about, right? You know,
people sleep with celebrities and they can't talk about it. That's why we don't hear about it.
That, you know.
It's always like, remember the picture of Justin Bieber? The girl, like, took a picture of herself in Justin Bieber's bed. It was like a big deal because she signed an NDA and then she sent a Snapchat of a pic. And it's like, Justin Bieber sleeping with everyone. Like, celebrities sleep with people. Not all of them, but you know what I mean? And the way that we don't hear about it and don't get Snapchat photos of it is we have them sign NDAs. So why is he not doing that?
Do you think Garth Brooks has freak-offs?
Well, yeah, maybe Garth has freak-offs. I think him and Trisha have freak-offs, which we'll get to.
Okay, well, let's talk about the
upside down sex.
Let's talk about the other factoid that seems to be a major sticking point as far as, like, her
everyone discredits her
of what has happened. Yeah, and it's this, right?
Yeah, this is, like, what's discrediting her.
Or that it's the thing that a lot of people seem to be pointing to as their way of attempting to discredit her, right?
I think that there's two aspects.
The hanging her upside down.
Yeah, and I think there's two aspects to this. That one, people are only getting clips of the suit. So when they're reading the phrases, it's whatever that article happened to say out of it.
Yeah,
rather than
read the full text.
I just read the full text of that incident to you. So that's everything that's included. So I think people aren't understanding everything.
A lot of time it's just, taken out of context. Like, he held her upside down and penetrated her, and people are, well, how do you do that? Right?
Yeah, when that could be separate. He put her upside down and then he penetrated her. And like, it's condensed down in a way.
People who lack imagination, I guess.
And then that was my other point, was that you and I were talking, we're like, okay, let's just read it, and then you tell me what you're envisioning as, like, a sex position or how this is happening. We kind of thought of two ways that you could be grabbed by your ankles upside down and penetrated. Let's just take that sentence the way it is. One, I kind of envision like a wheelbarrow situation, right? Like, if she's down on the ground and he has her by her legs, she's not completely upside down 90-degree angle, but, like, her head is upside down and then she's, like, L-shaped, right? And he's wheelbarrow, like, face down.
Yeah.
Like, on the ground. And then the other way that I thought was that he could have her on the bed by her ankles up and her head hanging off the bed as he penetrates her. And it doesn't necessarily say he penetrated her vagina in that moment. He could have been penetrating her mouth. It says that there's things that happen that were so graphic it's not even put in the claims yet.
Yeah, it includes that specific detail, but then does not include other details. I think that because it's obviously meant for impact, I think, as far as it being traumatic, not so much as trying to explain all of the details of exactly what positions her sexual assault took place in.
Well, and it says that she's put in many positions. So,
and then it specifically doesn't go into details there. But like I said, I mean, I think that detail is included for, dramatic effect essentially, but because it seems to be particularly traumatic. It says, the blood rushed to her head. It's a forceful act, according to her,
Right. So after this incident, we've kind of wrapped up that incident, right? We'll come back in some details as this goes. She said in her suit, she knew that she could not say anything to Garth Brooks or anyone who worked for him about what he had done. And this is why when he continued to ask her to work with him at another job in LA, she agrees to go. After the assault in LA.
So still working for Garth and Trisha.
Yeah, which we talk about this all the time, but it takes time to process. It takes time. Was that the first time she had been with someone other than her husband? She needs to tell her husband. She needs to go to therapy. She needs to go see a doctor. She did take action. She went to a doctor immediately after.
Well, and as we said, a huge basis of that, created this situation in the first place is that she's financially dependent.
And she's financially dependent, and we don't know why. So she continues to go work with him. And afterwards, this is an interesting part of this that's not talked about a lot, is that Garth then told her that he receives this mysterious text message in which an anonymous person claimed that Garth Brooks had ruined his life. He then calls Jane Roe about this text. He says he has no idea who texted him the message and begins to suggest that he thinks it's her husband.
Okay, yeah.
And he tries to demand that she reveal her husband's phone number because he wants to know.
Yeah, he's got to know who is this.
Yeah, what are the chances that she went home and was like, this happened? Maybe she didn't want to tell him it was rape because he would make her quit. Maybe she did tell him it was rape and she's trying to figure out. I mean, my gut tells me it's probably her husband.
It seems likely, right?
Likely. I mean, what else is it talking about, And it happened, that text message comes in a few days after the assault.
Okay.
So then there is some recorded text messages and phone calls about this. So these are direct quotes about this between Garth and Miss Roe. Garth Brooks says, "I never want to hurt anyone, so that text message, it bothered me. I didn't know the number." He claims that the unknown text in which someone said he had ruined his life led to this exchange between him and Jane Roe, where he continues saying, "And that killed me. It broke my heart. Like, God, I never want to hurt anyone. I was scared to death. And then, when they called you for work and you couldn't come for 2 months, I thought, oh, crap. That's what I thought. Oh, crap. So I was trying to seek you out to come talk to me or whatever I needed to do, but I just don't want to hurt anyone, man. I just felt bad." So on top of this mysterious text, he finds out not directly from her, but from whoever arranges his appointments, his assistant or whatever, that she doesn't come back to work for him for 2 months. And in that time, she goes to the doctor. That's
things you might expect a victim to do.
Right. So all the talk of, well, why didn't she come forward for 6 years?
Yeah,
she didn't do anything. And it's
always a major sticking point again.
Yeah, it seems like some things were happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, there's more to the story, essentially.
So she does come back. She does the next event in LA or whatever that was. And when they are all reunited, as in her, him, and Trisha Yearwood, this is when he begins this relationship where he starts fondling and making out with Trisha, his wife, in front of Jane Roe. All the time. He proceeds to tell her he thinks it's hot to see his wife with another woman, offers that she could be that other woman, and this is where she begins to shut down. She just doesn't respond.
Mm-hmm. Garth and Trisha are the couple at the end of the bar sending you a drink.
Aggressively.
Yes.
Yeah. So it says in the suit there were a lot of times that he would say inappropriate things to her within earshot of Trisha, and she was scared and confused because she doesn't want Trisha to hear and like judge her or be mad at her, even though it was all him who initiated, because she has this 20-year friendship with this woman, and now her husband is like not only raped her, but is starting to get like really forward and like awkward. And it's like, what do you do? How do you respond? Is this a green light for a relationship that I'm not even wanting? Do I have to like coddle you to get through so I can continue working?
And Garth is also being sexual with Jane Roe throughout this time as well, right? Like he's being like sexually suggestive as far as like the things he's talking about, not just about like being with his wife. And he's also, isn't he also kind of like trying to touch her while she's doing makeup and stuff?
This is next.
Okay, we're getting to that. Okay.
After the assault and rape in LA, the frequency of him telling her his fantasies and groping her breasts started to increase. Yeah. He would grope her while doing his hair. And I believe I have this in more detail as we go, so hopefully I don't repeat this. But basically, while she was doing his makeup and hair, he would have her like unbutton her shirt and be naked. And he would like
be topless, right?
Yeah, and he would touch her and then he would masturbate in front of her. And there's like a very famous quote in it that he tells her he has gallons of cum to like this. I like to include those things because you can't make this shit up.
Yeah, right.
He wants to cum on her glasses. He hangs her upside down. He
comes buckets
and jerks off while she's doing it. If you're gonna make up a rape, I always say this, like if you're gonna make up a rape story, wouldn't you stick to the typical believable story? When you're telling the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes, right? Like
yeah. Who makes up this crazy shit sometimes?
And I think about that too. Like when I think of my own assaults, I've had fears, and the reason why I haven't gone to court is because of shit like this. I don't want to have to give those embarrassing details and someone be like, "That's so crazy, you made it up."
I guess the thing that I'm thinking about with this situation too is the way that she has to work like in close physical proximity with Garth. She has to stand right next to him, like over him, in like an enclosed area, and how he's exploiting that situation to like be able to be sexual with her, like, you know, take your titties out, I'm trying to touch her, or if he's masturbating. And also, you know, him having like that financial, this is his employee, essentially somebody who's providing a service for him. And so he has that financial power over her, but they're in close physical proximity, and how that relationship mirrors some of these other ones. I'm particularly thinking about like Deshaun Watson and him like sexually assaulting his masseuses or massage therapists, and like how like it's this situation where you're in close physical proximity, and then this person takes advantage of
that's what
like
Epstein
both
did
that.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how commonly do we see that type of situation?
Epstein would have massages.
Massages.
I thought about that,
is
like
a big one, and so then hair and makeup is like, how much does that reflect that type of relationship?
Right, because he keeps coming out of the shower naked with her, and it's like so easy to be like, oh well, you were gonna do my hair and makeup, I had to shower real quick, and like we've known each other forever, like I'll just jump in, no big deal. You know, it's like easy to just kind of push that line a little further each time.
Epstein hiring a teenager, well, come give me a massage, and that just leads to an opportunity to take advantage of somebody. And so, like, how much does, like I said, this relationship that Garth has with this woman as the makeup artist, you know, it really reflects that type of thing.
Yeah, also you can do it with anything. Like if you're a house cleaner, people ask you to do it naked.
Well, yeah, anything like that. Anything like that.
Come be a naked chef. Come be a naked, you know, anything.
Anybody in service.
It doesn't stop there. He continues insisting that the groping or the sex would continue by saying things like, well, next time we mess around. And if she would say, no, there's not going to be a next time, he would get angry.
Which she did say, right? Yeah.
There's many reports of her saying no, even in text message as evidence. She was worried that if she kept refusing him, he would cut her off financially or fire her. Or I think that there is this heaviness of that she has this relationship with Trisha, and she doesn't quite know what to do there because she's also going to lose.
She's working for her for a long time.
She's working for her. They've got to be friends. That's a type of friendship, working relationship. And it's like, now your husband's hitting on me and he's raped me. If I tell you, do I also lose you, or do you leave him? Does the entire world find out about it? That's a lot of pressure on the victim in that situation.
Well, and she has a lot of pressure on her too, because this also seems like another situation we heard a lot where it's like, for Garth, it seems like it's all fun and games until she says no, and then he really responds negatively. He kind of flies off the handle and like flips out and acts like a baby and does all this shit. And like that sounds like, you know, we've heard that with like other characters as well, like these like Russell Brand type of thing where it's like, oh, I'm so fun, like we play around, this is like my fun like persona, this is part of who I am, until you say no, until you reject him, and then it's like, then what could happen? Because they're dangerous at that point. They could do all kinds of crazy things.
Well, and I've definitely been in the situation where you have to appease this person to some degree, so you can't blatantly reject them. You know, you're trying to put boundaries up, so you say things like, oh, I don't think you want to do that. Well, what about your wife? Things like that, where it's not completely shutting it down, but it's like trying to put up boundaries. And then, especially in text messages which come up, okay, well, now you have me in situations where I'm responding to your sexting and I'm not shutting it down. So now you're in the cycle where it's like, well, if you come forward about what happened, they'll just use that against you. So I think it says, you know, starting to get kind of caught up in this cycle of depending on him financially. Maybe there's evidence that would point to, oh, well, you know, you were part of this too, kind of thing. And so this is where it says in her claim, being financially dependent on her rapist started to cause mental and emotional turmoil on her, and she started to think that her only way out was suicide. So she starts spiraling in depression and suicidal thoughts. And during...
So this is serious for her,
Yeah. And so during this time, he was forcing her to sext, as far as using many different cell phones and emails, including emails using women's names. I don't really know, like, the purpose of that, other than, like, I guess you kind of look like you're not Garth Brooks as you do it, but he would then say, hey, it's me, you know?
Yeah.
And we do see evidence of these text messages. A lot of it is redacted because it mentions other people's names at events or other employees' names, so they redact a lot of it. Specifically, there's one where he like wants her to talk about his dick size, and she calls him Roosevelt, which you had to like explain that to me.
So was that a text message that was between Jane Roe and Garth? Because I remember seeing that specific text message quoted, but I wasn't sure if that was them. Okay.
That's between them, and that's her evidence of he was sexting me. She's the blue.
Yeah. So if you find this image online, which is easy to find, the top of it is redacted, so you can't read all of her message to him. You read what she says, and I'll read what he says.
This is not the beginning of her sentence. It just kind of cuts into whatever they were. It says, warm fact, in that huge stick you carry, Roosevelt.
And he says, I'll take that nickname. Thank you. I love you. With lots of hearty emojis and stuff. What a weird thing to say, dude. Like, I mean, like, obviously you had to explain the Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, big dick, big stick, whatever thing. And him, that's a weird, but whatever. But like, what does warm fact mean? Like, that's the part that I'm confused about. What is a warm fact? Do people say that?
I think whatever the rest of that sentence before that says would maybe make more sense.
Is she saying that it's hot or something? Or is she...
So the redacted part above it is because they were talking about people and events that they don't want publicized. Yeah. So they're talking about some sort of event or person at an event or something.
What is a warm fact, though? I'm so confused.
I don't know. I don't know how to like tie that in. I don't know.
Okay.
Or what they were talking about that would then make it to where they mutually are trying to talk about his big dick.
Like, I feel like the Roosevelt reference is a very dorky way to flirt.
I don't ever want to read old people sexting, and this job has made me like have to read more old people sexting than I ever want.
It's a good example of like celebrity strangeness, you know?
It also reminds me of like when all of our parents figured out how to add emojis into text messages. So it's like, okay, we're going to have like 8 of them, and
maybe this like goes to prove like what you were saying earlier, like it's just a little too weird to make up.
Exactly. Teddy Roosevelt jokes. Okay. Moving on, we've gone from May to now we're in October of the same year, 2019. Garth brought Jane Roe to LA for 5 days, during which he physically groped her body, including her breasts, She was terrified to be in a hotel again, worried that he would force himself on her. And her fears were justified one morning when she went to Brooks' room to do his hair and makeup. He was on the bed, face down, wearing loose shorts and holding his crotch. He made it clear he wanted to do what he had done before in LA with Miss Roe on May 11th, but she managed to escape the situation because he was running late and people were waiting to pick him up. Fortunately, other employees were on the trip and in close proximity within the hotel, but this did not stop Garth from repeatedly squeezing, touching, and groping her breasts anytime he could. He even made Miss Roe open her shirt to expose her breasts for him for this purpose of his own sexual gratification. I think that's code for that he was jerking off. He did not hide that he ended up being angry and upset with her for not allowing him to continue sexually violating her in these ways. So during that time, I think she was trying to put a stop to, you're not touching me while I do your hair.
So what do you mean by that? Like he made a big deal about it when she said no, basically.
That's an exact quote from the claim, from the suit. Mm-hmm. Just that he did not hide that he was angry and upset with Jane Roe for not allowing him to continue to sexually violate her.
Okay, yeah.
And this is, in October.
I guess that's pretty clear,
Yeah. The suit continues. I'm using exact verbiage because I think it's important when trying to dissect exactly like how these incidences went, even though they're sometimes vague. It says, on too many occasions to list, Garth Brooks would stare at Miss Roe's breasts and pressure her to open her shirt to allow him to physically touch her breasts for purposes of his arousal, after which Garth Brooks would then masturbate. Regarding this, Garth Brooks, who said he would take care of himself, also told her that he could not let her see because when he comes, it's gallons. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Garth Buckets. Next.
Then he implied the groping of her breasts would continue despite Miss Roe insisting this was unwanted. For example, one time when he was groping her, he said, "Next time we mess around," and she said, "No, there will not be a next time." He visibly became angry at her and left the room. The frequency of these incidences with her breasts and masturbating was so high that it was inevitable that other employees of Garth Brooks likely saw or heard incidences of unwanted physical groping while she was doing her work. So she believes that other employees know about it and have even seen it and witnessed it.
Yeah, okay.
Because it happened so often, there was just no way that it wasn't noticed.
All right.
So that'll be interesting to see if we get like witnesses who come forward. So that was the end of 2019 and kind of how her year went. She's suicidal. She has all these money problems that we don't know about. So moving into 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020, the music industry especially, I think this became a time when anyone working in any sort of entertainment industry became even more desperate for work. And then also add on anything to do with court cases, lawsuits, and all of that all had to be done virtually.
Yeah, it would have been a long time before anything had seen a courtroom.
Yeah. So putting that into context as we move into these situations in 2020 and on. So in or about May of 2020, Garth Brooks, while speaking to his manager and with his wife also present, directly in front of Miss Jane Roe, talked about inventing a shampoo bottle that would double as a dildo. When Miss Jane Roe became uncomfortable and would not join in the conversation, Garth Brooks became upset and slammed his fist down on the kitchen counter in frustration so hard that items on the counter moved, and he leaned in and spoke in a threatening manner to her. Following this incident, Miss Jane Roe sent this text to Garth Brooks. "I have thought a lot about the conversation of last Monday. I can't work in an environment where explicit sexual comments are made about shampoo bottles doubling as dildos. I mean you no harm, and if you truly value my work, I'm happy to show up tomorrow and or whenever you may need my services." There's phone calls where she is now beginning to record her phone calls with him. She told Garth Brooks that she was also upset that he told his wife that she had seen his penis. He tried to minimize what happened and said, "Oh, sweetheart, for one, I think I know Trisha pretty well and she wasn't uncomfortable. And I said you saw my stuff. That was it. We were talking about something and it just came up. Look, I'm worried you're overthinking this."
You know, what seems interesting about that is that he seems to be acknowledging what took place between them.
Yeah, right? He definitely, whatever shampoo dildos, I love that he doesn't deny that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, people have funny conversations and sometimes people get uncomfortable in the room. That could be nothing, but...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like this could be, I mean, that could be the type of conversation that could be an okay conversation with somebody who's okay with it, right? But then it could also be something that would be problematic in the situation that it sounds like she's describing.
I think the main reason that it's in the suit is because she texted him about it. He acknowledges that this is a sexual work environment. You know, like there's proof there. He's like, oh, you know, I didn't mean that. And then in the phone call, he acknowledges that she has seen his penis and his wife knows about it. And she's the one making a big deal out of it. Mm-hmm. Which again, like plays into that. He's doing this stuff to her and putting her in the position where she doesn't want to hurt her friend or embarrass her friend or upset her friend, that he's exposing himself to her. And she's just like, what are you doing? Don't do that. This lawsuit from her, it states this. So I'm just reading, not to jump forward to his lawsuit against her. But it says... In his abusive Mississippi action, Garth Brooks says in his own suit that Miss Roe falsely accused him of sexual misconduct. However, he is not able to explain why he told her in 2020, in response to this, I work with the best, and I don't want to do something stupid that breaks this team up, so I will do whatever I need to do or do whatever I don't need to do, but I just want to keep working with you. But if you feel weird working with me, it's fine. We don't have to work together. She said, I've never found myself in a situation that's I just don't know what I'm going to be able to look up from. And frankly, I'm a little frightened of you. I really am. He says, sweet baby, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine. That makes me frightened of you. And she then explains that it would be difficult to work with him again, to which he said, I'm asking you to work together forever. You have a place here as long as you want it. I'm lucky to have you. I don't want this to go anywhere, and I don't want something that happened in the moment to screw the whole 20 years I've known you. I love you to death, honey. I don't ever want to see you hurt or cry or want or need for anything. Ironic since he won't give her health insurance.
Right.
If you are down physically, if you need income, just let me know. I want to help. If this situation happened a year ago before me and you did anything silly with each other, the answer would have been the same. Yes, let me help. I'm so sorry that we crossed a line. I don't want to hurt anyone. I really don't. She then said over this recorded phone call, I want to make sure that even though I've told you no, that you are cool with no. I mean no as in no fooling around like we have done. Are you cool with that, right? And she proceeded to say, when I saw you at some event that's redacted, when you were doing whatever event, you were really upset with me. He said, no, I would never be upset with you. Look at it this way. The best I can explain it is me and you broke into a jewelry store, and the second we broke the door, we looked at each other and said, this isn't right. But we had already broken the door, so I think me and you get out and run and just hope that no one ever finds out and just love one another and be friends. Is that fair? Which is a very strange analogy, but basically just like, well, we crossed this line and we were already there, so might as well keep going and then just be friends and keep a secret, I think is kind of what he's saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, are you ready to get into Garth Brooks' reaction to all this? That is pretty much everything that's summed up in the lawsuit from her.
Yeah, I think so.
So what's interesting about Garth Brooks' end of this is that, you know, it seems like at some point in 2024, she had told him, if you're not going to put me on salary and give me health insurance, then I'm going to come forward in the ways that you've been sexually exploiting me for a job. And so she had let him know that that was sort of her plan. So he filed an anonymous lawsuit in Mississippi to try to block her lawsuit preemptively. So he filed his September 13th. And he filed it, this is a big deal, he filed it John Doe versus Jane Roe. His
anonymous.
Anonymous on both ends. He doesn't name her, he doesn't name himself, because he wants to protect, he says, both of their reputations. So that was September 13th. October of 2024, I think it was like October 3rd, she files the lawsuit in LA, notably with the same representation that Cassie had against Diddy. And she claims to have all the video and audio recordings and texts as proof for this. And this is when he makes a public statement, because in her lawsuit, she names him. It's Jane Roe versus Garth Brooks. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Troyal Troyal Garth Brooks. So because he was named, he makes a public statement, and this is his... It was weird. I had to piece it all together because no one puts the whole thing. This is his whole statement, hopefully completely in order. For the last 2 months, I have been hassled to no end with threats, lies, and tragic tales of what my future would be if I did not write a check for many millions of dollars. It felt like having a loaded gun waved in my face. Hush money, no matter how much or how little, is still hush money. In my mind, that means I'm admitting to behavior I'm incapable of. Ugly acts no human should ever do to another. I trust the system, I do not fear the truth, and I am not the man they have painted me to be. He calls it a shakedown for millions of dollars. And it was interesting because I was listening to this lawyer who said usually a remedy for an unjustified lawsuit is to countersue for malicious prosecution, which is already very difficult because you're allowed to sue each other. So it's very unusual for him to preemptively sue her.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
And basically he says this is a real amateur move. Like, he thinks he's, like, ahead of her, but it's weird. Okay. That it's not going to do anything. She has the right to sue you. Yeah, she has the right to name you in it.
Yeah.
And
so essentially he could do it to try and intimidate her, but will that work? It didn't, right?
Yeah, and that's what they say. And because then he has this action against himself when she does make her lawsuit, where he's like, they're like, look what he's already doing. He's already trying to...
Yeah, he went on the offensive first.
Yeah, instead of trying to work this out. So I also want to note that when he makes this statement, the picture that they use in a lot of the YouTube videos of him when he makes this statement, his hair and goatee is like absolutely unhinged. So it's clear he doesn't have like a hair and makeup artist. Like, he looks haggard.
Save it. We need that for the Instagram.
Yeah, he's got like a goatee going on, but then some like undergrowth, so it's all like uneven. It's like a goatee and a beard at the same time. And
sounds like he needs some hair and makeup time.
He might be too scared to have another makeup artist. So anyways, her lawsuit is for assault, battery, and sexual battery, and gender violence. Once she named him in her lawsuit, he went back and amended his lawsuit to then name them both. And so then I thought that meant I could figure out who she was. I was just curious. Online, they cover her name because she's the victim in it.
Yeah, a lot of hay has been made about her exposing him and then him in retaliation exposing her, right?
Right.
But as far as we know, it doesn't seem like that information has been reprinted by any media outlets. We couldn't find it online. Not that we're looking to expose her necessarily, but also, that's what we encountered when we were researching.
It's kind of unclear if she actually named him, because it seemed like from what I was reading, she said a well-known musician in this area. I guess you could piece that together.
I think she'd been known to have worked for him in the past, right?
But she was Jane Roe in it.
Okay, yeah. Huh.
And he just said that exposed him enough and made him feel like his reputation was on the line and she knew what she was doing, that then it's only a fair game to then name them both.
Yeah, I mean, she's filed this lawsuit, but it's not like she's done any interviews or anything, right?
No, so, and I mean, joke's on him too, because now we know he's part of it and you cannot find her information. I tried to dig for it. I have to have an entertainment license or be a lawyer myself or whatever and have like the case number to request the files online and probably pay for them. And like, I made it pretty deep into the process until it was asking me like for evidence of my business license. So it's not exactly public record. So all that to say, I don't know who it is. Anyone on Reddit who has named her has been banned and their comments are deleted. So they warn you not to say her name. So it's pretty impossible to find, but we all know he's part of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that really helped his case there.
Well, kind of like much hay has been made about them potentially exposing each other, but that seems to be the state of it, is that at some point he was exposed and he has at least attempted to expose her, but it's not really public information at this point.
Right here, like, so this news article about them being named, it says, a lawsuit in California accuses Brooks of raping a woman in 2019 who worked as a hairstylist and makeup artist. Attorneys for the accuser, only identified as Jane Roe, references a preemptive complaint filed in Mississippi to silence our client. A quick search of Pacer, which is the website I tried to use, the federal court database system, does not uncover a case filed by Brooks in Mississippi. However, a case filed by someone who identifies as a well-known celebrity and public figure who resides in Tennessee denies the sexual abuse claims and alleges that Roe was attempting to make the claims public as a form of extortion. Defendant is well aware, however, of the substantial and irreparable damage such as false allegations would do to plaintiff's well-earned reputation as a decent and caring person, along with the unavoidable damage to his family and the irreparable damage to his career and livelihood that would result if she made good on her threat. The irony in that part is, like, everyone's aware that this is going to ruin everyone's career, but why was nobody planning, if this was truly consensual, Garth Brooks, why did you not sign an NDA and have proof that this was a consensual relationship? That would be so basic. I keep coming back to that. That's what makes me feel like it was not consensual. It was not planned, responsible sex between two consensual adults for someone that has a $400 million career. You're just going to throw it all away. And a reputation as a monogamous, conservative, upstanding husband to Trisha Yearwood. Mm-hmm. Like the power couple of country music. Really irresponsible. Okay, so I have some wrap-up questions for you. I want to hear. We've shared a lot of thoughts, but
yeah, okay. So
basically, just offhandedly, what's your gut tell you? Do you think she's telling the truth?
I think that the allegations seem credible. If you want my opinion, this is my podcast. I get to say my opinion. I think that the allegations seem fairly credible. I think that it's within the range of possibility that, like, maybe the worst case scenario I think that it would be that maybe it's possible that they had a consensual relationship and that she, like, changed her mind or something over time. But I personally think that seems unlikely, and that it seems that, like, these allegations seem credible, and that it potentially exposes, like, a side of Garth Brooks that we didn't know before, and is, obviously damaging to his reputation and to who he is. And so that's my takeaway as far as, like, what my personal opinion is. How about you, Lorena?
So logically, I know it could go either way. We still have a lot more to learn and hear about this. My gut tells me she's telling the truth. I think there's too many very specific details that you would be embarrassed to share that if you were making up the story, you would leave out. I think people think the other way, like, oh, it sounds so crazy, she must have made it up. I think it's so crazy it could only be true. I think the worst case scenario is that it was consensual and he still had really shitty power dynamics where he's a $400 million celebrity who had a full-time employee that he refused to give health insurance to, that he's also sleeping with.
And he can also physically dominate.
Yeah, he can physically dominate her. She's financially dependent. He's powerful. He's famous. Everyone's going to believe him, which seems to be the general consensus online. There's not a lot of support for this victim at all.
Yeah, interesting.
So, I mean, he's kind of winning in that way already.
Yeah. So you'd say that you think that in general, your perception of, like, what public opinion is regarding this is that she's made it up?
Yes. And it all comes down to a few things. The sexual positions that they think is impossible, which is so dumb. Like, do you think that she's so dumb that she would, like, not be able... Why wouldn't she say, oh, he raped me in doggy style
nitpicking then? Something that was taken out of context in the first place.
Like, she's a grown woman. How she knows how sex
possible?
Works.
Like, that's possible, dude. I'm pretty sure people fuck that way sometimes.
Yeah, she's a grown woman.
That shit happens.
Yeah, she knows how sex works. Why, if she was making it up, she would make it up from things that she has experienced herself. She would describe sex in the ways that she's experienced to them. Why would she make up some bizarre position? I think that people just don't understand the wording, or it's not very clear.
Yeah.
So it comes down to that. And then also, every, like, Reddit thread you see about this, hundreds of comments from people who have met Garth Brooks, because he, is from Oklahoma, and he goes to church, and they talk to him at church.
Yeah, he's so beloved, right?
He built a house for his ex-wife across the street from him so he could always be near his kids. He will give food to a single mom. He'll give money everywhere. He has all these charities.
He seems to really reach across the aisle as far as his appeal, as far as
he tries to live this,
like, on the political spectrum,
small town life, and they always say, oh, he'll come in the back of church. He draws down his hat so he doesn't draw attention to his face. That he'll always sign things for people. There's stories like one time he had like a low-level employee work for him, and years later he took time off on a weekend to go sing at that person's wedding that he totally didn't owe that to.
We love to hear it, right? We love to hear stories about celebrities being kind to their fans or being down to earth or whatever. You know, we always eat that shit up.
Every single person who's ever raped someone has also done great things. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to that, I guess. But for the most part, people are good and bad.
Okay.
I can name great qualities that people who have abused me in my life also have. That's what makes these relationships complicated. That's what probably made it complicated in this. She has this long-time friendship. She sees the good in him. She wants to protect his marriage. Like, all of these things that make it complicated, where she wasn't just raped by a stranger in the alley. She was raped by a 20-year friend. Her best friend, a best friend and employer, her boss, her husband. So it's complicated, as these things always are. Was she just disposable to him, or was she something special? But if she was special and it was consensual, why wouldn't he just set her up to be happy or have her sign an NDA? I keep coming back to that. Are him and Trisha swingers? Did he cheat on her?
He's not. Well, and he's not settling now either.
Yeah.
He's, you know, now that he's being sued, he's not settling. He's not just paying her to go away. He's fighting it. He even went on the offensive and sued her before she got a chance to.
Yeah, it's interesting how rich people are always money hungry.
Is that a different Garth Brooks than the one we think we know, I guess? Whatever we actually know about him.
I assume that these aren't all the facts that we'll get, that, you know, whatever case comes, there will be more. So I'm very interested to see. I'm not completely throwing out the idea that, like, he could be innocent. He does seem like a great guy. I like Garth Brooks. I like his music. I hope he didn't do it. But
yeah, widespread appeal. There's a lot of things that you want to like about him, right?
Yeah, and we'll see if anyone else comes forward. Maybe I would love to hear of people who have had threesomes with him and Trisha. Did those people sign NDAs? Like, what's going on? All of the women that he's fucked every inch of his hotel room of every race. Like, where are these women?
Yeah,
please?
According to Garth, there's plenty out there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so why does he gotta rape someone? That's always the question. Anyways, that's who's canceled this week.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do next week?
Yeah, what should we talk about?
Well, I've been diving deep into Neve Schulman today. It's a little bit
another overdue. Lorena pet project.
Yeah, I guess he was in a car accident, so then I saw that and I thought, well...
I've had to watch every episode of Catfish.
I am a big Catfish fan. Not necessarily a big Neve fan. He looks like my ex-boyfriend, so it's kind of hard to watch.
Very punchable.
Punchable
face.
Punchable face. I want to hate him, but I love the show. I love Max and Cammy.
Another, like, big progressive value.
Yes, performative feminist man.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. But there's, like, 3 people who have accused him of sexual misconduct to whatever degree. And then also, I just learned today, he got kicked out of college for punching a woman.
That's a little wild. That definitely seems like, you know, Neve soft boy, you know, seems out of character.
So
what we know.
Maybe let us know. Do you want me to get into Neve next week, or
no?
Should that go on the Patreon?
We'll get to it. We're definitely going to end up doing it anyways.
Yeah, we'll see what comes of it.
What else do we have? Let me look at my list real quick. Let's rattle a couple off real quick.
We've been, wanting to do Lizzo, but we have someone that we want as a guest to do it with us. So kind of waiting on that.
Look forward to and stay tuned for some potential guests on the pod.
Also,
okay, well, story of the day, Jay-Z.
Oh,
right?
yeah, because
Jay-Z, Beyonce, we've been talking
that.
about this. This is coming.
It's going to be a big one.
Vince McMahon, Kanye.
That's like an 8-part episode.
Yeah. We wanted to watch the Nick and Aaron Carter thing.
I thought about that. Can I plug in my podcast for a second?
Neil Gaiman, the author. He's just been accused of sexual misconduct with numerous women. He's being sued right now.
That'd be more interesting if I knew who he was. Okay, can I tell listeners what I'm doing on my other podcast?
Please.
That I'm working on?
Please do. Since
everyone is revisiting the John Bonet situation because the new documentary came out from the perspective of John Bonet's parents, the very famous murder of the 6-year-old pageant girl in Boulder, Colorado in the 90s. I went ahead and read the book that is done by the detective that was on the case. Before I get into it, like if you have any interest in this case, please visit the Reddit for JonBenet. Start going through all the evidence. I highly recommend Steve Thomas's book. It's just called JonBenet. But I'm going to get into my theories and how it relates to some of the pedophile panic at the time, satanic panic, pedophile stuff, and relating it to some of the things that I was going through similarly at the same time. So I'm going to share my Ramsey theory, and I would love to hear what your Ramsey theories are, and that I will be recording in the next week or two on my other podcast, Sex Without Fear. So follow over there so that you are ready when it lands.
Yep.
Are you excited to hear my theory?
I've heard it.
Yeah, you've had to hear a lot of
it.
This is true. All right.
Thanks for sticking with us, listeners.
Yeah, here's to a new full year.
Yeah, new pods, new subjects.
New cancellations. All right. See you next time, Herman.
Yeah, sign off. Bye.